now time for Blackened Horde Radio. The best in black metal, the best in death metal, and all their extremities. This show is only on Animosity Radio, and it's hosted by the one and only Summon. All information can be found at blackenedhorde.com. Welcome to Blackened Horde Radio.
Blackened Horde Radio, Season 2, Episode 16.
It is imperative that you allow me to be your water boy.
I can't hire you. I can't hire anybody with a poor...
You do not have to pay me. I will do it for free. Just promise me that you will never distribute the contents of that drug to any human person.
And I bet. That last band reminded me of Digested Flesh, which I might have to play later. Anyways, I am gonna go ahead and play a song by Markradonn before we get on to the interview, so you guys can enjoy this tune. This is an awesome song. This is Final Dying Breath. back here on Blackened Horde Radio. Anyways, we're gonna get this interview started. Alright, so go ahead and tell everyone who you are first of all.
Well, my name is Haniel. I'm the lead guitar player and vocalist for a symphonic black metal, death metal band from Florida called Markradonn. And, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Summon, for setting this up. I think this is awesome. Really happy to be here. And this is a really great opportunity to get out there and reach some of the fans, and some people haven't had a chance to meet me yet, and talk a little bit about what the project's about and what the plans are for the band.
All right. Hello. Okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So tell us the final update on the lineup.
Okay. The lineup right now for the recording is pretty much the full-time lineup. It's myself playing, the guitars, doing the vocals. Also, I'm going to be doing all the bass on this recording too, but we're probably not going to be doing that in the future. We're going to find a full-time bass player because I can't play bass and play guitar at the same time live. So that's obviously we're trying to find somebody to replace me for that. I'm also playing guitar synthesizer, which is going to be a lot of fun because it's something that's kind of an obscure instrument. A lot of people really don't know about it. Basically what it is, it's a guitar that I have set up and fitted with some electronics so that I can play it like it's a keyboard. So you'll hear a lot of that on the album. There's even a couple of solos I'm doing with that. We have Tim Carter on drums, who is also in a band called American Party Machine. Tim's been great. He's really taken the bull by the horns and has laid down some amazing, amazing drum tracks. I'm so happy with him. We have Matt Farrington from the Garden Music School over in Winter Garden. He's been amazingly supportive. And he's playing French horn and fretless bass on this recording. And I think there are a couple of songs where he's contributing some trumpet. And we recorded those tracks before we got Chris King, who is going to be a full-time trumpet player. We're actually recording his tracks next week for the album. And he's been great. We recorded a couple of songs kind of to sort of demo them. And one of the songs that we did, I think you played a couple of times, Frenzy Run of Sorrow. We did some trumpet harmonies in there that were a lot of fun to do. And we're also going to be playing a song later with him performing trumpet on called No Redemption, No Forgiveness. That's an instrumental, which is one of the more experimental things that we've done yet. We have Alan Rea, who is the rhythm guitar player. He was able to perform on the song that you're going to hear, and he also did the rhythm guitars for Final Dying Breath and Frenzy Run of Sorrow. He lives about 1,000 miles away, so we're trying to work it out to get him and me in the same place at the same time so that we can really get him involved. But he's been awesome. He's really contributed a lot, and we're working on several of the projects right now. And did I leave anybody out? Oh, yes, Jonathan Katz, who is the timpani player on this. And it's really cool because it's like I'm working with Tim on drums, who is just an absolutely amazing drummer. And on the other side of the spectrum, I've got another drummer who's playing timpani and doing all this concert percussion. So it's really exciting to work with these guys because they're all really hardworking, they're all really talented. And there are some places where, I feel like I'm kind of the weak link in the whole thing, and I need to step up my game and improve my own playing so that I can kind of keep up with the guys. They're really amazing musicians, and I couldn't have asked for any better situation than I'm in now.
All right. And just a little joke in here. Drew says you have a loud mouth, but he's just kidding.
I've a loud mouth?
It's a joke.
Well, apparently he hasn't heard the vocals.
No, he's not.
There's a reason why I talk loudly, is because I also scream very, very loudly. I'm proud of that. I'm also a public speaker for a living, so, you know, one of my idols is Anthony Robbins, so, I mean, you know, that's a guy who's got a very loud voice. I've also got a very sensitive microphone on my laptop, so tell him if he wants to really hear my loud mouth to listen to the album with the vocals on it.
Well, we don't want it on here, otherwise it'll be very distorted.
No problem.
Anyways, let's go on. Tell us about the additional instruments.
Okay. Well, I think the one that kind of jumps out the most is probably the timpani. And for those of you who might not know what timpani are, they're these big, gigantic kettle drums. And if you go to a symphony orchestra and you see like the guy in the tuxedo off on the far left with these big drums and these huge mouths and just whacking on them like you know, like really beating on them really hard, those are the timpani. And they're really pronounced in soundtracks, like Conan the Barbarian. Anybody that's ever heard the soundtrack to the original Battleship Galactica or that movie The Black Hole, or the timpani really come out and they're really pronounced as the percussion instrument. And there was a band that I heard back in 1991 or 92 called Master's Hammer that used full-time timpani and a drummer. And I thought it was the coolest idea, and I haven't really heard a band do anything like that since. I know Septic Flesh did a little bit of timpani, and maybe in a couple of places, but we really wanted to make it a full-time instrument because timpani, they're a percussion instrument, but they're also a pitched instrument. So it gives us a lot of room where we can actually use the timpani to create like different types of harmonies or to kind of enhance the overall mood and the tone of the music. So it was an interesting experiment because we didn't have anything else to go on, because outside of Master's Hammer, who did it on one album 20 years ago, we really didn't have much to go on. So when we did the timpani recording in August, we did everything but one song, which we're going to do in a couple of weeks. We had no idea how to approach it as far as how to mic it and how to layer everything and whether we should use 4 or 5. It was just something that we sort of had to learn as we went along. And from what I was able to hear, and I think you guys will hear it later on in the interview when we play the song, it really did exceed my expectations. It's a pain in the butt to mix, but it did exceed my expectations because it almost as if sounded like, you know, I can't imagine doing Markradonn without timpani being part of this. So John did a great job. We did a couple of different unorthodox techniques with as far as using the timpani, as far as the mallets that he was using to hit them. And we really focused on the 31-inch and the 29-inch timpani, and we used the other ones, the smaller ones, as kind of like additional accompaniment for those two. So you'll hear it on the album, and on the song that we have here, we're using, I think, 4 of the 5 timpani that we recorded with. The next couple of instruments that we used were also pretty interesting. We're using French horn, trumpet, and a full brass section. We've even got some trombone in some parts, and we're going to be using, I think, flugel when we record the rest of Chris's parts next week. Now, I like keyboards, don't get me wrong. I think they sound great, but it got to the point with me where I sat down with Matt, and we were talking about it, and I said, well, you know, I could do a lot of keyboard and ensemble stuff on the guitar synthesizer, and he said, well, I play French horn, so why don't we see how that sounds? So last year we experimented with some French horn, and I loved it, and he thought it was great, and he's not really into metal, so if he likes it, then it's the sort of thing that I can kind of go along with, because he's got some pretty high standards, believe me. But it was great. And then we incorporated the trumpet, and I think on Frenzy Born of Sorrow we have Alex Ragazzi playing trombone for us on it. So instead of using keyboards for the bigger, more symphonic and triumphant parts, you're going to be hearing trumpet, trombone, French horn, and a full brass section, which is really exciting for me because I've always wanted to kind of do something a little bit different with that. We're also going to be using some, we haven't recorded all of it yet, but we're going to be using some additional percussion instruments. We use like a concert crash cymbal, concert bass drum, something called Serto, which is going to have some kind of cameo appearances on the album. And Serto is like this gigantic garbage can of a floor tom. It's huge. It's like 3.5 feet. I don't know how big it is, but it's a pretty big instrument. So we're going to be using that with some of the, in some parts. And we're also going to be recording before the end of the month for the title track on the album, a percussion ensemble, which is something that kind of sort of popped out of the blue because we have this section in the song, which again you'll hear on the album. And so we're using a variety of different instruments. We're even going to be squeezing in a little bit of didgeridoo and some djembe, especially on the title track song. And then on the last song, we've got a lot more guitar synthesizer. We've got more that we're doing as far as the horns, and it's pretty exciting to be doing, harmonies with a trumpet player of Chris's caliber. I just think I'm having such a great time with this. I can't even begin to tell you.
That's awesome. All right, go ahead and tell us about who all is doing the production, the master, and the mixing.
You're pretty much talking to the guy who's doing most of it. As far as all the recording, I've had some experiences over the past couple of years, which was one of the reasons why the project has been delayed as much as it has been. I was working with a couple of different studios and a couple of different engineers. Some people that were doing it out of their house, some people that had like a full treated studio, and they all dropped the ball. I hate to say that, but I just wasn't getting the kind of commitment that I needed. I was spending money on it, and it just wasn't working out. So I decided to kind of take matters into my own hands, and I got together with Matt and with him, and we recorded the drums ourselves. And somebody that works at Garden Music School, Shay, he did a great job helping us out with the drum recording. Being a really good assistant and helping me set up the room and everything. He did a really great job, but. Then we started listening to the drum recordings, and they came out pretty good. So after that, we just decided to have me take over and just really put in the time and the work in order to get the recording done. But I'm not going to be doing all of the technical stuff myself, because obviously I'm a guitar player by trade. So going and just picking up on the mixing would be a little bit too complicated for me to do on my own, especially with the horns, with the timpani, and with all this other crazy stuff that we're trying to do. So I've decided to go back to a studio that I've been pretty friendly with for a couple of years now, YRS MIDI systems in Castleberry. George has been, he's been really great, been really helpful. So we're going to be going there, and I'm going to be doing the mixing there under his consultation with his assistants. And we're going to be sending the files to be mastered by David Chang in the UK. And he's been awesome. We've been talking a lot the past couple of days. He's been giving me some advice. We've been talking about recording and musical philosophy, which is really great. It's one of the reasons why I like him so much, because he takes such a very deep philosophical approach to mixing and mastering music. But essentially, the entire production falls on my shoulders, and I think it's probably better for me to do it this way, because this way I can really put the time in and really dedicate the effort that's needed in order to get the sound that we're looking for. Now, is this going to be something that's going to be perfect? No, obviously, it's the first release in this entire project, so we're experimenting with a lot of different things, and we're also doing it on a shoestring budget, which is essentially whatever I have in my pocket right now. But the point is to do something that is sincere and something that's authentic as much as we possibly can, without doctoring it up too much in the studio, and without trying to have like almost like a generic approach to it. Everything about this, right from the instrumentation to the recording, even the song structures, we're just trying to experiment with everything. The two songs that we gave you and that we released earlier were probably the more, I guess, conventional of the songs that we have on the album, but the next four are very unconventional as far as the way that they're put together. So the whole production had to go through me in order for me to really hone in on as far as the actual vision of the way the music was supposed to turn out.
All right. And when will the album be released?
Well, I've had some people get on me the past couple of weeks because they've been waiting for it, because I've been talking about releasing it since May of this year. But like I said, we had some delays, and we also recruited some new members. So it was for the best, because the music has improved tremendously in the past 6 months. And like I said, I've never been happier with the turnout and with the outcome than I have been now. But the date that we have committed to, that I've submitted to the record label who's going to be distributing the album digitally, is December 21st, 2012, which is supposed to be, according to the Mayan calendar, the end of the world.
Nice.
So for those of you out there who know what I'm talking about, it has been predicted, it has been foretold for 6,000 years at this date that ceremonial abnegation is supposed to finally come out is going to be the very, very last day of the Mayan calendar. And for those of you who don't know, I've been working on this for 15 years. In fact, like, I don't know what my adult life would be like without me working on this project. And the fact that it's finally coming out is an enormous, huge, epic deal, worthy of the world crashing into the sun, you know, like 4 days before Christmas. And doesn't it stink that it happens 4 days before Christmas? Couldn't it happen, like, you know, the day after New Year's when all of us are too hungover to figure out what's going on?
Yeah,
I mean, really.
Yeah, right? Just like the whole 2000 thing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's when it's going to be released digitally, and we're looking to do the double CD digipack that's going to have some extras and some cool stuff on it, and a new EP at some point by February.
Alright. So when you first started the project, you were not going to play live. So why have you decided to change your mind and play live?
Well, I think the first thing that happened was I didn't think I was going to be doing this with anybody else other than me. I thought I was just going to program the drums, that I was going to do everything with guitar synthesizer, I was just going to, you know, record everything on a 4-track, get it over with, and then just pretty much quit music altogether. And this was about 3 years ago. And then something happened. You know, Matt and I, we started working on some material, and it sounded really good. And then I started jamming with Tim a lot. And my confidence kind of got a little bit more. I'm not going to lie. You know, before that, I was just, you know, it was just the sort of thing that I just need to get out of the way. So my confidence as a guitar player had dramatically improved when I started working with Tim. And he's such an awesome drummer, and he's so much fun to play music with that it was almost a no-brainer to go and get that whole setup that we were working on in front of people. And then it just spiraled into this madness where now we're looking at getting the timpani live, we're looking at getting a full horn section live, you know, and if it turns out that I'm going to be playing guitar synthesizer live, I might have to have a second guitar player to play a lot of my parts if we're going to duplicate whatever it is that I'm doing on the album, because there are a couple of places here and there where I'm doing 3-part harmony with guitar synthesizer, guitar, and with the second guitar. So it's something that just sort of evolved and morphed into something I just didn't plan. And I'm happy with that, and we're really looking to go and fill out that last position, which is a bassist and somebody also to help out with some of the vocals live, to go and perform this material in front of people. And if we can find a venue that has a stage large enough for us to go and fit timpani on it, that'll be a pretty wild experience for anybody who's never actually seen that before. And I've never heard of anybody using timpani full-time live at a club show with a death metal band. Mm. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And we're also looking for alternates and for extra horn players so that we can have the full ensemble live instead of because we need more horns live instead of just the 2 or 3 people we're working with.
All right, so now let's talk about the new song. What is the
Okay.
name of it, and how was it recorded?
Well, it's called No Redemption, No Forgiveness. It's an instrumental. And as this band evolves, instrumentals and instrumental parts are going to be more of a focus of this band. Because with the alternate instrumentation that we have, it just gives us a means of expressing things without using words. So we're going to be using more and more instrumentalism on the upcoming recordings. And by the way, I just made up that word, instrumentalism.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how else to explain it. But we're trying to use non-lyrical parts, non-verbal parts as a means of expression and expressing moods as well. But this is an instrumental, and the real main focus of it is obviously the timpani and the horns. It's somewhat incomplete because it is just a demo version, but it's something that's worthy of listening to. And it doesn't have a couple of components to it. Like, we're looking to add another horn track to it. And we'll talk more about that after you play the song, as far as what we're looking to do with the song if need be. But it's, I think, the 3rd or the 4th song on the album, and it's about, I guess the image is that it's almost like a dirge, almost like a funeral dirge in a way. And it was heavily influenced by the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack. So I'm pretty excited about it, and Jonathan did a great job with the timpani on it, in my opinion, and I'm really happy with the horns. It's pretty simple, but it was a lot of fun to do.
All right.
And I recorded everything on this album. All the parts were recorded with Zoom R24 with the 8 inputs on it, and just processed everything myself. So it's not perfect, but this is just a demo version. There's going to be a superior quality version on the album that's going to be released in just a couple months.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and play the song.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome.
But I'm going to have to put the Skype call on hold so I don't blast your ears out.
No problem.
So here is the new song by Markradonn, No Redemption, No Forgiveness.
No
So what'd you think?
Well, so that was the second time I heard the song, and I like it. I always like instrumentals myself, and a lot of people, some care for them, some don't. So, but I really like it.
Cool.
I
That
love the
particular song
range.
is it's sort of like a link between the third song and the fifth song on the album. So it's just kind of like a little sample as far as what we're doing with the horns with the timpani.
Okay, so now that people have heard the song, is there anything else you want to add about it?
About this song?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess sort of like some of the imagery that we were sort of invoking when we were recording it, especially the timpani and the horns, is kind of like this vision of these decaying demons, I don't know, like these big ugly monsters just kind of dragging a rotting, dying corpse along the ground and just dragging it. And so that's kind of like one of the things that pops into my head whenever I listen to or play that song. I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with the song itself. It's just the sort of feeling that I get whenever I hear like the horns and the guitars and the symphony kind of brought together like that. So it's more of like a funeral, kind of like almost like a funeral dirge in a way, or at least an interpretation of that. And it leads up to the title track, Ceremonial Abnegation, which is where the main protagonist in the whole story concept, where he, for all intents and purposes, does a ritual where he takes his own life and he curses everybody and everything on his way out. It's a pretty contemptuous part of the album, you know, and it comes right before in the story arc, Final Dying Breath, which is a song I think that folks heard at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah, that's an awesome song.
Thank you. We put a lot of work into that one.
Good. It shows. Alright, what kind of equipment do you use, and what is your main guitar for the album?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question. You know, being a guitar player, I love talking about gear, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible. But on the album, I already mentioned the Zoom R24, which we're using, which it's just a standalone recording device. It's a digital recording device, but it has the 8 inputs in it, so it allows me to kind of take it wherever I want to go without having a laptop hooked up to it and record whatever I need to record. So we've needed a minimum of 4 to a maximum of 8 inputs to record the horns and to record the concert percussion and also to record the timpani and the drums. So without that, this wouldn't be happening because I wouldn't be able to afford one of these more expensive, higher-end interfaces, and sometimes the software can be kind of complicated. This thing, you just turn it on, you press record, and it does the rest. I'm also using some tube microphone preamps, which have been really helpful because it kind of warms up the sound a little bit. But as far as the guitar playing, I'm using I have 2 different power amps that I use, and I recorded Alan's rhythm guitar parts using a Johnson J Station and running it through a Simulclass 290 power amp. It's a Mesa Boogie power amp. So the son of a bitch is loud, really loud, louder than my voice drill. But it sounded great, and we ran that through a BBE and through a Marshall cabinet, just put an SM57 microphone up to it, and just cranked the sucker. And some of the guitars that we recorded in that session you heard on the last song. Now, obviously, with a better mix and a mastering of it, it would be dramatically improved upon. But you can hear that the potential is there, and then once we get the proper mix and mastering, it'll sound great. I hope that it's not great. Now, as far as what I'm using pretty much the same rhythm guitar setup that we had for Alan, except I'm using different presets on the J Station. And the J Station is like, it's an old kind of amp emulator, kind of similar to the Pod, and it kind of came out at the same time as the pod, but Line 6 sort of cornered the market on the amp emulators, and this thing was just kind of hanging around. But it has some really, really, really great preamps in it that I just fell in love with. And one of them just happens to be a Mesa Boogie preamp, which I think is really good for the type of sound I'm looking for. So I use that as my primary rhythm guitar sound, or like the background guitar sound, and I use another rig that has a Carvin TS100 power amp in it. I'm a big Carvin fan. I use a lot of their gear. I've got 2 of their guitars, got speakers in the speaker cabinet that I use. So I love it. It's really good stuff. But the great part about this is that it's just clean. It's just pure volume. So it gives me a chance to just really tweak my sound and just use this thing to power it. And I use a GSP 1101 guitar processor that also has a preamp in it. And I run a PV preamp as the first thing in my chain into that thing, and then I've got a BBE Max Com. So that one rig that I'm running through the 212 that my luthier Dave built for me, that rig right there has a much more compressed sound. So it's more tight, and it also has more mid-range. So it gives me a little bit more flexibility as far as what to do with the tones. Whereas the Mesa Boogie Power Amp and the J Station preamp, it's not really as compressed. So I kind of use that more for the background. It sounds pretty good. I recorded some of the tracks already for the last song, and I am redoing the guitar tracks at the end of the month for the 2 songs that you heard, so I could use this setup a little bit more effectively. You know, and I also use a Digitech Harmony Man, which is a really good harmonizer. But I'm only using the harmonizer, I think, in a couple of solos or in some other places. Everything else I'm just harmonizing with overdubbing. You know, as far as the mixing and everything, I'm just using like 5 different DAW workstations, and it's trying to get through that. But I know what we recorded the drums with. We used a Dixon. It's like a metal version of the Gretsch drums, and it sounded pretty good. The toms are really deep sounding, and you know, we're really happy with that. And it gives us you know, a little bit of a deeper sound on the toms. So that stuff's been really helpful. Oh, yeah, and my main guitar. I mean, I forgot about the most important thing. There are 2 guitars really that I'm using with this. I'm using an Ibanez with DiMarzio pickups in it, and I'm using my Pride and Joy, my custom Carvin DC400, which Carvin really, really, really should pay me for all the plugs I'm giving them tonight. But I mean, they just made some really good gear, and they designed this guitar for me to my specifications, which was awesome. And I brought it to Dave over at Garden Music School, and he did a slamming job setting the thing up for me and keeping it in tune, which was really important. But I love that thing, and hopefully the sound that I'm hearing coming out of the amplifier is the sound that everybody else will hear on the album in December.
Okay, and what is your relationship with Garden Music School?
Yeah, I got to mention Garden Music School here. You know, I think every interview I do for the next year, I got to talk about how supportive Garden Music School has been and how supportive Matt has been in particular. You know, I mean, I just basically walked in there as a customer, and I just made friends with Matt. And Dave Rumies, the luthier, is the guy who makes it possible for me to play guitar, because if he didn't make the adjustments on my instruments, it would have been very difficult for me to go and play guitar, because I have arthritis, pretty bad arthritis in my hand. So he adjusted the setups and the tension on the necks of my guitars, and I haven't had a single problem since. And Garden Music School, I mean, they've been amazing. We did a lot of the recording there. We recorded all the horns there. We recorded all the drums there. We recorded Alan's guitar parts there. You know, Matt has been gracious enough to be very supportive, and he also has helped me out with getting me some microphones and things like that. So he's been amazing. But Garden Music School is great. They're really great. They've been really helpful, and they've been the biggest ally of Markradonn, because without Matt and without Garden Music School, this doesn't get done, and we're not even having this discussion here. Dave, the luthier, I approached him about building me a MIDI guitar. And I got the electronics from Graphtech, another company I really like. And they sent me the electronics with the instructions. I gave it to him. I bought like a cheap $110 Ibanez guitar. He gutted the thing, put these electronics in it, and now I'm able to play synthesizer guitar with some pretty good tracking on it. I'm really happy about that. Without those guys, you know, it's just none of this would be possible. I mean, I can't say that enough. I can't say enough good things about them and how supportive they've been. And I'm really blessed and really gracious for everything they've done. And you know, they've made this happen. You know, and Matt's done an unbelievable job. Matt was the guy who found Chris. He was the guy who found Jonathan because they worked for him. So he said, "Hey, you want to go and play on this project?" And they're like, "Okay." So I mean, it's just, you know, Markradonn does not exist in this form without Matt and without Garden Music School.
Awesome. All right. Do you have any plans on making any music videos?
Funny you should ask me that, because my good friend Cato and I have been talking for about 3 or 4 months now about doing a music video for a song off the album called Internal Hate Unbounded, which is, you know, probably my favorite song overall because I think it's the most personal. And it's also one of the heavier songs, and I tend to like slower, heavier songs with more weird stuff happening in it. But we're planning on putting together a music video with that. As soon as I get the mixing started in November, I'm looking to start shooting for this. And it's, you know, we're still storyboarding it and still brainstorming some ideas for it, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's going to be some really extreme visual elements in there, or at least we're going to attempt it, to try and match up with what we're looking to do with the music. But that song, we're hoping to get a demo version of that song, Internal Hate Unbounded, done by Halloween. But again, when it comes to having a whole horn section, it's always going to be on their schedule whenever they're available to go and record their parts. So we're looking to get those parts done next week, and when those are done, then I can start laying down the rest of my parts. And that's going to be the song that we do our first music video for, and I'm pretty excited about that especially. Probably more so than anything else, I'm excited about that.
All right. Do you have any side projects that you're working on?
Well, Alan and I have been talking about doing something for a really long time. And he has a project that we're going to kind of almost meld with Markradonn as a release that we're going to do within the next couple of years called Return from Within, which is another kind of concept piece that I am really, really, really interested in. I mean, it was very inspiring. He's a very good songwriter, and he doesn't really get a chance to showcase it in this because, you know, I'm just glomming all the songwriting for myself. I've got 30 songs written for this band for the next 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I have no life. All I do is play guitar. You know, he has a project he's been working on for quite some time, too, kind of like parallel to mine, because I've known him for 15 years. So we're going to be doing that at some point in the next couple of years, and I want people to look out for that because it's going to be a lot more straightforward, more focused on the metal, and the songs are going to be really a lot of fun. And you know, I'm going to be playing guitar solos on that, and also doing the vocals. And the vocals are going to be probably a little bit more extreme even than this. So I'm really happy about that. Tim, he plays an American Party Machine, which is kind of his main sort of live thing that he does around here in Orlando. And that band is amazing. I have so much fun whenever I go and see those guys. I didn't know what to make of it because, you know, I'm into more extreme metal stuff, but the first time I saw them live, I was completely blown away. They have a great time doing it, and the guitar player, Dave, I mean, he's got some really good blues chops, so I really appreciate them. A couple of other bands I'm working with, I just started laying down some guitar synthesizer tracks for a band called Archaic Winter, and the singer Luis I met on Facebook. He's in Peru, and the guitar player is in North Carolina. So it's kind of like a very international sort of project there. But, I mean, that's just like straight up, you know, old school black metal with like a real polished edge to it, and I'm happy to be working with them on that. My friend Martin from Malta, he and I are going to do a track. Now, Martin is from a band called Black Vulture, And that's pretty exciting. I love that band. And Martin is one of the most talented musicians I've met since Markradonn went public in March. It was a real surprise to me. He sent me a bunch of CDs and everything. It couldn't be any cooler. And one thing that I think is really cool and really exciting for me is that Drew, the guy who thinks I've got a loud mouth, he and I have been talking lately about me coming aboard Vital Pain in the next 6 to 8 months and laying down the guitar solos and starting to work with them. So that's something that's really inspiring for me and something that's really awesome because it gives me a chance to join a band, play guitar, and not have to get so wrapped up with a lot of this other stuff that I'm doing, like trying to figure out how the heck I'm going to record a trombone. It's refreshing to be able to get involved with a band, and also somebody who, has a passion like Drew does. So that's a lot of fun. So it's great. I have an opportunity to do vocals and solos with my friend Alan, and I have an opportunity to go and do lead guitar with a really good thrash metal band from the east coast of Florida called Vital Pain. So I can't ask for anything more than the opportunity that's been presented to me, and doing all this alongside with Markradonn. I mean, it's just I don't need a social life if I'm just going to be playing music all day long. It's really awesome. And John, the timpani player, he's also in something called the Brass Band of Florida. And, I mean, when you see him performing in that, it just blows you away at just how good he is. And Chris, the trumpet player, he's actually the guy who recorded the trumpet on the Monday Night Football theme song. So, there are definitely some great things happening alongside of what's going on with Markradonn. In some cases, like the brass band, and Chris, obviously bigger than Markradonn is right now.
So within the next year, we will have to ask you, how much sleep are you really getting?
Well, I kind of set up my life, but to be honest with you, if I could go and just play music all day long, all night long, every day for the rest of my life, I wouldn't really have anything to complain about. Sleeping is something that people do when they should be practicing, in my opinion. And I'm one of those sorts of guys, and this did not help me with my hand problems earlier when I started taking guitar lessons with Joey Lodez from my brother-in-law's band, Maelstrom. When I started studying with him in 1997, I was practicing 10, 12 hours a day, until my fingers bled. Because when you're around people that are just really, really good at what they do, it makes you feel really stupid. It makes you feel pathetic. That, like, oh my God, these guys are so much better than me. I could never, ever, ever reach that level. But I'm going to try. So, so I spent a lot of time practicing. Now my practice is a little bit more structured so that I don't overwork myself but still get the same productivity out of it. But where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. I mean, I would much rather be practicing than sleeping. Much rather.
Oh, yeah.
Now I have the guitar synthesizer work to do with Archaic Winter. I'm going to start that probably in October or November. And actually, it is October, so I got to get started on that soon. I mean, I'll definitely be sleeping, but I won't be doing much of anything else.
All right, and let's talk about all your supporters and promoters.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Where do I start? Well, first and foremost, I mean, my biggest supporter obviously has been my mom. My brother-in-law, Gary, who's in Maelstrom, he's been really helpful. Alan has been great. The guys in the band, Tim, Matt, I've already talked about Garden Music School and how much they've done. You've been great. I mean, since the second I met you, you've been awesome with trying to get the word out about the band and believing in us. And a more like experimental black metal-ish, Black Death kind of band in Central Florida is a little bit of a rarity. So it's really helpful that you have been, trying to get the word out there. I know Dave Fairchild has been great. I gave him some flyers at the last show, then at the Vital Pain release party, and he proceeded to spill beer all over them. Great, so I had to give him some more, but it just shows his commitment to the metal. And, Drew's been really supportive, sharing our pages and everything on Facebook. Tyrant's Blood in Canada. And if you haven't heard Tyrant's Blood, you have not listened to death metal. They just sent me their Crushing Onward to Oblivion CD, and please, I can't get enough of that stuff. I mean, I put them right up there with Sinister and Deicide, some of the great death metal bands of all time. And they've been great. We're working on a cross-promotion with them. There's a band from Sweden that's been really supportive called Tragedia, and the guitar player Jimmy has been really, really supportive. There used to be a band called Void, and I'm really excited about those guys. And I think they got a great future ahead of them, and they've been really supportive of what we're doing with Markradonn. Pridge from Deviant Radio in Knoxville, Tennessee. She's been great playing us on the radio. Josh Alexander at Radio Obscura in Portland, Oregon. I know Josh needs some support right now because he's going through some things, so I may not be talking to him much, but he's definitely in my thoughts. And then obviously going back again to my brother-in-law Gary. I mean, I've known him since I'm 16 years old, so he's been really, really supportive. Him and my crazy sister. She actually did the vocals, the female vocals on their last recording, which I was really amazed about because she's always wanted to sing on a metal album, so that was great. Joe Lotus Bodo has been really helpful trying to get me to use melodic minor. Joe, it's not going to happen. If you're listening, it's not going to happen. I have no idea what you're talking about. But the level of support I think has been great. There's also I did a long written interview with Dave Wolf from Autoerotic Asphyxium Zine, and that he really did challenge me with a lot of questions. I mean, we talked about some of the similar things that you and I talked about, in our first written interview, and some of the things we're talking about tonight. But we really got into a lot of tough stuff about the spiritual and philosophical side of what we're doing over here, and also with going back to some memories that I had of the metal scene in the 90s before I even started playing guitar. So, yeah, the actual support itself has been remarkable. And if there's anybody listening and I left them out, I'm sorry, but it's a really long list, and we're still, I released the first demo song in March, so we're going about six and a half months now, so it's been really great. But I do have to make a mention of a local band called Abdomen Canvas. They were nice enough to let me and Tim practice in their facility, because Tim practices in their practice space with American Party Machine, and they were really nice enough. And Tanner, the drummer, who is a ridiculous drummer, he let us use his drum module for some of the recordings that we did. So I definitely have to thank them, and if anybody in that band is listening, I really appreciate the work that they've done to allow Tim and I to practice and to put a lot of time into it. So yeah, I mean, the support's been amazing.
Awesome. And you mentioned your brother-in-law's band. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with them.
Wow. Yeah, I love Maelstrom. I've always loved Maelstrom. The first demo that I heard, and I think in every interview that I've done since I released the first demo songs, I've talked about Maelstrom. It's really difficult for me to talk about Markradonn without talking about Maelstrom, considering that their guitar player is my guitar teacher and their singer is my brother-in-law. I mean, it's practically my entire family. And my sister sings with them. So, I have to bring them up. Joe, as a guitar player, has been really influential to me. And he took me under his wing and got me started. And Gary has been, he's a lot of the inspiration behind this, because he's wanted to put out the release that he just recently put out. And they just recently got signed by Itchy Metal, which is awesome. I'm really happy for them. It's a long time coming, because this was started in 1987 or 1988, and for as long as I've known the guy, he's always talked about wanting to get it back going and everything, and he finally did. And I think that Alan working on his stuff and Gary getting his stuff together in 2007, 2008, something like that, was really inspiring for me to get back on the ball and to finish this. And for those of you who haven't heard Maelstrom, you absolutely... Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Hairball. Occupational hazard to owning a cat. Who sheds? Let me get some water. I'm back and I'm not choking anymore.
Yay!
Thank you very much for your patience. Anyway, going back to Maelstrom, Gary had a big influence on me because it was his perseverance with Maelstrom that really, gave me the impetus behind putting this back together and really getting it done. So I owe them a lot of thanks. But right now they just got signed to Itchy Metal, which I think is a long, long, long time coming. And it's a big event, and something that I think is really big in our family right now. And he has 2 nephews right now that have hair down. Actually, I have 2 nephews. One of them is my godson. He has 2 sons. And one of them, my godson, has hair down to his ankles. So he's getting him started early on the metal.
Nice.
And it's really an amazing thing to, at right around the same time, he and I are both getting our musical careers going. I mean, obviously, Maelstrom, they've got like 30,000 likes on their Facebook page. So they're really, really up there. And if you haven't heard them, you got to listen to Maelstrom. The guitar playing is amazing. The lyrics are amazing. So I don't know if we're ever going to see them playing a live show, but if you do, you'll be blown away. You'll be blown away.
All right. And are you guys getting much airplay from other stations?
Yeah, I just mentioned Deviant Radio. They've been playing us, and Cridge was the person who introduced me to a couple of those bands, like that band Tragedia that used to be Void. That was a real amazing experience. But she's worked really hard to try and get us on the air. And Josh Alexander over in Radio Obscura has done a really good job. He was actually the first, the second radio station. Was it the first or second? I don't know if you guys were the first or if he was the first, but it was like the same weekend. And it really blew me away when, Josh went and just, and they're not even, they play metal, but they're more of, they're not by trade, by definition, a metal radio station. So he was open-minded enough to play us on it, and they got a really good response.
That's good.
So, yeah, that was really great. And I think the Metal Throne in Texas, DJ Metal Lord, I think he played us a couple of times too. So I got to give him some props for that. But there are definitely radio stations that are into the underground stuff that are playing unsigned bands. And I think that's amazing. I think more radio stations should do that. Because you can always find these popular bands on iTunes, to find them on the internet. But where are we going to hear the new music from? Where we're going to get the new stuff from is going to be from underground radio stations that have a direct contact with the scene and direct relationship with the scene.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was my whole thing when I started doing the Disorderly show, was just all unassigned bands of any genre. I didn't care what genre they were. But anyways, let me go on to your next question.
Sure.
All right.
Now, you do a great job with the Disorderly show, by the way.
Well, Disorderly and the new show are kind of combined in a way, because they're similar, except for the new show is just all Florida scenes, where Disorderly can be worldwide. So,
wow.
That's the only difference with that. Anyways, do you guys have a record deal? Are you looking for one?
Well, right now I think we're just going to focus on the digital distribution because, my brother-in-law, we have a slightly different philosophy as far as this is concerned, but a lot of the points that he made I think were really important. One of the very first things that I did when I started this was to secure distribution. And when I put together the first demo with somebody I was working with in 2010 and 2011, which was the first time I ever recorded anything from that, I just made a couple of copies of it, and I found somebody on the internet who was saying, send us some material, we'll review it. And I sent them something, and I was like, whatever. I don't really care, because at that particular time I had no real plan as far as what to do moving forward. And then literally within 24 hours, I got an email back, and he's like, you got to get in touch with us. We've been listening to stuff around the office here. Let's talk. And I said, okay. You know, and I got in touch with him, and we talked, and we set something up for a 2-release digital distribution deal. Now, is it a record deal? No. Are they fronting any money? No. Do I want them to front any money? No. Do I want anybody to have any control over what this sounds like or what the production is? Outside of the people that I'm working on it with? No.
Hell.
So, huh?
That's more of a hell no.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, back then I would completely agree with you, and I'm like, holy crap, how am I going to do this without having that type of backing and without that kind of support? And now looking back at it, I think it would have driven me to a point of either blowing my brains out or retiring, because I think there's something that needs to be said about me finishing what I started a long time ago. And now that this album is getting done, and I've spent a tremendous amount of time on it, teaching myself production, going to seminars, and watching videos on mixing and engineering, and just doing all the research over the course of about 3 years has really just enriched my life and enriched me as a musician. So I'm really happy about that part. But I think moving forward, if anybody on the planet actually likes the stuff that we're doing, which I hope they do, because I've got some great musicians, you know, as a part of this band. I mean, far better than me. I mean, if you take into consideration Matt, Chris, and Tim, and you know, that certainly is. I mean, those guys are great, in my opinion. You know, I hope people will definitely check this out. And if it's something that does catch on a little bit, I'll be absolutely interested in talking to somebody, provided that they understand the whole musical direction and everything that we're trying to do. Somebody that's supportive of what the purpose of Markradonn is, not necessarily somebody who wants to kind of get their fingers in the mess, if you know what I mean. So right now at this point, I'm financing everything, doing everything myself. Matt has been helping, like I said. Alan has helped with some things. He sent me some gear he wasn't using that came in, I mean, really came in handy tremendously. You know, the whole record deal thing, the whole record company thing is, if it turns out that we're able to manage things and finance things with the way that we have things set up now, I don't know if it would be anything, if it would be practical for us to go and work with a record label, unless that record label wants to really focus a lot on the distribution end and let me take care of the rest.
Right. All right. Have you done many interviews so far?
I think I've done about 5 or 6, including this one. I mentioned Dave Wolf from Autoerotic Asphyxium Zine. I also did something with Luther from Pest Web Zine. I think of somebody else. Jerry from Feedback Zine. Obviously Blackened Horde. Luis. That's how I met Luis, and that's how I got involved with Archaic Winter, because Luis got in touch with me about doing something for his zine in Peru, and I can't pronounce it. It's a Spanish name,
yeah,
but it's a really good zine. He gets like interviews with like Necromantia. He did an interview with Sean Kelly that was really good, and Sean Kelly is performing a solo on the new Archaic Winter album, which I'm stoked about, because I used to listen to Ripping Corpse when I was like 15, 16 years old. So I'm totally stoked about that. And I remember when I met Scott Ruth at a Slayer and Morbid Angel concert. I don't know, did Slayer Production? I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. I think it was in 2000. I met. I was friends with this one guy that used to set up my guitar. So we went to like this. I think it was Morbid Angel and Pantera, something like that. Morbid Angel, Slayer, Pantera, I can't remember. But Scott Ruth was there, and I think he knew my friend, and we were chatting, and he gave me a demo and a cardboard packaging of the first Dim Mak demo, and I was so stoked about that, because I'm like, dude, do you realize that I like tried to sing like you when I was 15 years old? It was an awesome experience, and I still have that demo. And Dim Mak is great, so he was able to go and do an interview with him. So that was awesome. And then there was There's one more, I can't remember. I did about 5 or 6 interviews, but this, of course, is the most exciting one so far.
Definitely, it's on air.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of which, we'll go ahead and wrap this up with you telling us the future of the band.
Well, world domination. No, I'm kidding. I mean, the future of the band is just to continue to make music, is to finish this album, to release the follow-up EP, which is going to kind of link the first and the second album, to get that second album done, which is going to be an even bigger challenge than this, to do the third one, to get Alan's project done. I mean, it's just going to be about making music and just making more and more music and just constantly releasing something. And just being on schedule for the next 3 years, just constantly putting out good stuff. And just working hard and trying to make it happen. So one thing that I can say in closing is that Markradonn will always be about what you're hearing through your speakers. It's never going to be about, you know, what is cool or hip or trendy. In fact, if it's cool, hip, and trendy, I'm probably going to ignore it. And we're always going to try to do something different or new or try to reinvent what we're doing so that we can create something that you haven't heard before. And if you have heard it before, I'm not doing my job. So I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Altara for setting this up, and I want to thank Blackened Horde Zine and Animosity Radio for the support. And everybody out there who's listening, who said they would listen, my brother-in-law, Gary, my sister, Dawn, anybody. You guys have been great, and I really appreciate that. And this is a big deal for me because this is my first on-air radio interview. And I hope you guys check out the album, and I hope you guys give us an opportunity to show you something you haven't heard before in metal, because what we're really trying to do right now is redefine what we think metal is and trying to add something to it that maybe, you know, maybe some people are looking to hear. So I want to thank everybody.
Yes, awesome. And you can check Markradonn out via Facebook, and there is a group for the fans.
Yes, it's called the Brotherhood of Markradonn, and if you want to be part of the Brotherhood, just send an invite, and we'll keep you posted on all the happenings and all the updates as far as what's happening with the band, and even have an opportunity to get some pretty exclusive content that isn't available to anybody else.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for doing this interview, and I will play your last song, Frenzied Winter Sorrow, but first we need to hear some station IDs since we haven't in a while. So I'm going to go ahead
I still owe you one.
Yes, you do. So I'm going to go ahead and end this call. So if you want to listen to the rest of the show, you got your computer.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, because otherwise, like I said, the feedback will blow your ears out.
Well, take my word for it. I've got a pretty loud power amp, and I think my ears are already shot. So thanks for everything, Blackened Horde Zine and Animosity Radio, and everybody out there. Have an awesome weekend, and make sure you look out for Markradonn because we're coming.
Yes. All right. And I will talk to you soon.
Take it easy.
You too.
Hi, this is Simon Fortitude. Watch out for our new album, The Devil Builds. Now rocking the Animosity Radio in Silver Springs, Florida.
Hey, this is Dr. Mercy from Eccentric, and you're rocking to Animosity Radio, WEDG.
Hey, this is Bobby Lee with Lee Entertainment Group, and you're rocking with Summon on Animosity Radio. Rock the fuck on.
Hi, we are Fessing from Portugal. We are listening to Animosity Radio in Silver Springs, Florida. Stay tuned or die.